Good morning, everybody. Jason Russell, Guild Mortgage Company. I wanted to record a video this morning as there is a ton of news going out there right now with what's happening in the stock market and the bond market. And I kind of wanted to just try and give some clarity as to what's happening. So I see a lot of stuff on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter about how the coronavirus itself is no worse than the flu in terms of the amount of people that can die from it. And while this is somewhat close to true, what I would say is, and I'm going to try and leave this to an economic impact, what's really having an impact on the markets is the difference between the flu and the coronavirus is just truly how much easier it is to spread the coronavirus versus the flu, and also the latency period, if you will, before someone is symptomatic. So, they say it can be anywhere from 2 to 14 days before people start to show symptoms. And during that time, they're walking around touching door handles and, shaking hands and, grabbing the tongs at the buffet table and all those things. And they're busy spreading it. So it's an extremely efficient virus in terms of its ability to spread and impact people. Yes, it may only kill 3% of the people who become infected with it, especially those who are walking around with compromised immune systems. But ultimately, it's a matter of how easily it spreads, and that's really what's causing a lot of the economic anxiety. And what's happening is essentially you're seeing that the impact that this is going to have going on a ton of different levels. I mean, if you think about supply chains, right? If you think about things coming from China, when China is closing down whole provinces to slow down the spread of this virus, well, those people were working in factories and creating things that Americans were buying. And so it's a disruption in the supply chain, number one, which causes problems. If someone can't create that iPad or iPhone for you to buy, then that's a sale that's not happening in America, and therefore that's revenue that's not going to Apple's bottom line, right? These kinds of things happen. The other aspect of it, which I think is probably the bigger factor, is in regards to just really the impact that it's going to have on like the travel and leisure industry. So if you think about it, I just got back off a cruise ship. Every single person I talked to was like, "You're crazy. You went on a cruise?" Yes, I went on a cruise. I paid for it. It's already done. But the government came out today and suggested that Americans not go on cruises right now, right? And so people are going to go, okay, and cancel their cruises, right? So that's money that's being lost from Princess and Norwegian and Carnival and Royal Caribbean. I mean, these stocks are getting hammered, right? But that's just a small example of really where this impact comes into, because if you think about it, it's not just cruises people don't want to go on. People don't want to go on airplanes either, right? So now you're impacting the stock price of United and American and Southwest. And when there are not there are not flights that people want to go on because the coronavirus, and they're worried about going to airports where large people are and being stuck in a little tube for 6 hours flying across country with somebody who's sneezing. Well, what else do they do, right? Like Southwest or United or whomever doesn't need to buy planes from Boeing now either, right? So there's these trickle-down effects that happen. But also, if you think about just the fact, just around town, right? Are you going to want to go to the bowling alley and stick your hand in a bowling ball where everybody else's hands have been, but you don't know whether or not they wash them, right? So we'll give you another example. The South by Southwest in Austin, they canceled completely. I mean, this is the biggest thing that happens in Austin every year. There's suggestions that 15 to 25% of the annual income for someone who's a bartender, who's a waitress, those kinds of things, that their annual income, 15 to 25% of that comes from South by Southwest, the 10 days of that festival. Well, that got canceled. So now that bartender who works in Austin is going to go, oh crap, like that's a huge loss in income for the year. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to think about not going out. They're not going on vacation. They're not buying as much from Amazon. Like all these things have bigger impacts when it comes to when it comes to the economy, right? So it's not just about the virus itself; it's the impact these things have on the greater economy as a whole. So again, you're seeing a lot of people on one side of the fence or the other, and a lot of it depends on their political persuasion as to whether or not this is a big deal or if it's completely made up or whatever. It's a real thing. So what we really need coming up here is we need the government to step up and do something, and I think they will. I think it's politically expedient, and I think it's the right thing to do. The Federal Reserve came out last week. They cut interest rates by 0.5%. That's the federal funds rate, the rate at which banks lend money to one another overnight. It did nothing. Like, honestly, I don't know why they did it. It was not going. It's not a vaccine. It was not going to be of any help whatsoever. And all the Fed did was take a bullet out of their gun that they're going to need when to fight a recession that is going to be coming at some time or another. So it's one of those things where there's a lot going on. I do think the government will be coming up with things like paid sick leave, right? People are going to work because they don't have sick leave, and then they're sick. They spread it to customers, to each other, and all it does is exacerbate the problem. So that's all kind of coming into play. I do think something will come from the government in those kinds of things, whether it be helping particular companies, whether it be paid sick leave. I mean, they've got to come up with something. And I do think they will do that. The other thing that I will point out today is just kind of talking about what I do, right, which is mortgage rates. We're down 15 basis points on the 10-year Treasury. This is actually, I mean, this got as low as, right now we're at 0.55. It got as low as 0.40 at one point. Mortgage rates, mortgage-backed securities, they're up 30 basis points. They were up much, much larger. This is the kind of general trend where the 10-year Treasury has been on. And it's one of those things where, we have been suggesting to our clients to float rather than locking interest rates. Interest rates are at all-time lows right now, and I'm not doing that in the way that you hear on the radio when you're on the way to work, where it's been all-time lows every day for the past 10 years that you hear on the radio. But it's legitimately all-time lows. I've never seen interest rates this low. I've been doing this for over 15 years. And so one of the things I've been telling my clients is like, hey, let's not lock that rate. If you want to refinance, let's refinance, but let's roll this thing out. And they've seen the benefit of this in terms of, really the direction that rates have gone here over the past couple of weeks. I think we are approaching a point, though, that we may want to start thinking about locking. We're having a great day so far this morning. Things are starting to claw back. You probably have heard the Dow was down over 2,000 points at one point this morning. They kicked in a circuit breaker, which basically is like a stop. It's like an emergency hard stop. When the market drops more than 7% in one day, it gives traders 15 minutes to basically take a breath, figure out what's going on, calm themselves down, thinking rationally, and then start up again. And the market's rebounded a little bit from there. But we're getting into a point where eventually you have to start thinking about the fact that, we may have started to hit bottom. So we're still going to suggest to our clients for now to float, but we're going to really suggest carefully to, think about potentially locking that in sooner rather than later, especially if the government comes in with some sort of stimulus. So it is a terrific time to think about refinancing. You want to make sure you're working with someone who understands this kind of thing and can give you really good advice, because it can save you a ton of money. So I know this is kind of a long video, but there was a lot to talk about. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's out there right now. So I wanted to make sure that I put something out to try and level set for everybody. So hope you guys are having a great day. If there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and wash your hands. Talk to you soon.